Hey filmmakers, it's Kerry with Filmmaker Central, and today we're talking Mavic 3. So stay right there. We'll be right back. All right, yes, I have a Mavic 3 and I've been playing with it for the last few days, and I'm going to share my thoughts with you because that's what I do, right? So I give you a little background. I shoot with a ton of drone footage. Now, most of it is all on my YouTube channel, Trail Traveler. We do off-road trail videos, product reviews, guides, and things for off-roading in and around Colorado, Utah, Arizona, other places. And so I use drones a lot for that application. And in the past, I have gone out with 3 drones. I'll have a Mavic 2 Pro, an Autel Evo 2 Pro, and the DJI FPV drone. So any given trip, there's going to be 3 drones. And the DJI FPV drone, it has its place. Love that thing. I can get some footage that I cannot get with the other drones, and so it remains. The other 2, well, there was a reason why I would take 2. The Mavic 2 Pro had very good image quality, no problem, 1-inch sensor and all that, and it had excellent auto track or active track. So if I wanted to track the vehicle, I wanted to get some nice side shots, all more automated, it excelled in that area. However, the Autel, the Evo 2 Pro, same 1-inch sensor, I actually liked the image quality just a tiny bit better than the DJI. It was close enough that most people could never tell, but I liked grading the footage from the Autel a little bit better, but it had better obstacle avoidance, but its tracking wasn't as good. So if I was flying in tight quarters with a lot of trees, I'd pull out the Evo 2 Pro because I knew it was less likely to hit something. Or if I was just out in the open, I was going to be manually flying, I would fly the Evo 2 Pro because I liked the footage from it. If I was going to be tracking the vehicle or something where maybe I was the only driver or the only person in my Jeep, well, then I'd pull out the Mavic 2 Pro because it had better active track. So I had reasons for having those 2 drones. My goal was that the Mavic 3 would have better image quality than both of them, better flight times than both of them, better obstacle avoidance than both of them, better tracking than both of them, and would be a single machine instead of having to have 2 drones. So there's the background, right? Did it accomplish that? And that is the question. So we need to look at the feature set on here and determine whether, like, did it mostly hit the goal, or did it smash the goal, or did it fall short of the goal? So, okay, let's talk about the big one, the camera, right? Now, the Evo 2 Pro and the Mavic 2 Pro both had 1-inch sensors on them. So nice, decent sized sensors, and they worked equally well. This has a 4/3 sensor on it. Now, some people will say micro 4/3. Micro 4/3 is a system. That is the camera, the lens, the body, the mount, all that stuff. That makes up the micro 4/3, the micro 4/3 system. The sensor is a 4/3 sensor. This is a 4/3 sensor. That's why it's not called a micro 4/3, it's a 4/3 sensor, right? That is a big sensor. And it also has a second camera on here, which is a 1/2 sensor, which is a pretty small sensor. And let's talk sensor sizes, all right? So here's a graph that I made that shows you the relative sizes of different sensors. This is not to scale, but they are accurate within this graphic here. Your smallest sensors that we use are the 1/2. You move up to the 1/2-inch sensors, which we saw in the DJI Air 2. You have your 1-inch sensors that we saw in the Air 2S, the Mavic 2 Pro, and the Evo 2 Pro. And now we have the 4/3 sensor that we have on the Mavic 3, which was also in the X5 camera on the Inspire 1 and Inspire 2. And then you have your full frame sensors, which we just don't really fly. There is a full frame sensor available from DJI. It's called the P1, and it's and the X9, right? But those are only available on the Matrice 300 or the Ronin 4D. So on smaller drones, a full frame sensor would be far too big to fit into housing like this, but the 4/3 actually works. So did we improve image quality? Without a doubt, across the board, the image quality is significantly better. The colors look beautiful, the low light performance is better, the clarity is better, just everything about the image quality is significantly better, which is to be expected when you almost double the size of the sensor. So for that, I absolutely give it to DJI that they were able to squeeze a 4/3 sensor and a 1/2 sensor in here at the same time. But just having the 4/3 sensor is amazing. And that is a huge upgrade from the previous drones. Now, some people online have said, well, I can't tell the difference between that footage or these photos and an Air 2S. Well, then this isn't for you. It's really simple. If you're not going to benefit from the sensor on here, then don't upgrade. No, don't be upset about it or don't question it. Just don't spend the money. It's not worth it, right? Okay, so we nailed it on the image quality. What about flight time? Well, I live in Colorado, so I'm going to take a penalty on battery life simply by living at altitude. That is because the air is not as dense. We call it air density, right? And I live at over 6,000 feet above sea level, and most of the time that I'm flying is going to be between 8,000 and 10,000 feet above sea level or higher. So I'm going to take a huge penalty on my flight times. Now with the Mavic 2 Pro, I was getting right around 26, 27 minutes. With the Mavic 3, I'm getting 36 minutes. Not the 46 that they claim, because I'm not in perfect ideal conditions for this drone, which would be sea level at a certain speed with, the right ambient temperature and the right humidity and, it takes a lot of environmental variables to get that perfect 46 minutes. But to get 36, which is a 10-minute increase from the Mavic 2 Pro, to me, nails it on there, okay? Let's talk about obstacle avoidance. Well, the Mavic 2 Pro had front-facing. They were pointing straight out, same in the back, and then it had side sensors. But the side sensors only worked when you were in tripod mode, which I was not always in tripod mode, and I, sure enough, stuffed it into a tree a couple times because it was going sideways and went right into something, especially in active track mode. Very frustrating that the sensors were there, but they didn't work. With the Mavic 3, the front ones are actually angled out instead of being straight out. They're angled out. Same with the ones on the rear, giving you basically a 360-degree obstacle avoidance at all times. Not in sport mode, I'll be clear about that, not in sport mode, but in normal and cine mode, you're gonna have 360-degree obstacle avoidance. You also have sensors on the top and you have sensors on the bottom. So you have complete coverage for your obstacle avoidance. I tried to hit trees, I tried to hit a bridge, I tried to do some different things. It just avoided stuff without any incident whatsoever. So did it improve on the Mavic 2s or the Evo 2 Pro's obstacle avoidance? Yes, it did. Improving on the Mavic 2 Pro, it actually avoided things. Surprise, it's obstacle avoidance. Improving from the Autel Evo 2 Pro, the movements were not as drastic. When the Autel would sense something, often it would be very aggressive in moving away from it. And in some cases, so aggressive from moving away from one obstacle that it would go into another one. So this did not have those. It would see something and then just start moving so that it would avoid it. So the obstacle avoidance, absolutely killer on here. So what about the active track? How is it improved on here? This has active track 5.0. No, it doesn't. Yeah, so quick shots, master shots, active track, and a couple other features are not going to be available until January of 2022. That's a bit of a disappointment considering this is the beginning of November. So sometime in the next month, month and a half to 2 months, we're going to get a firmware upgrade that opens up those settings. So in the active track case, no, it kind of failed on that because it's not here. Now, once we get that firmware, I'll do another video and discuss how well that has been improved, and we'll go from there. But today, there's no active track, there's no hyperlapse, there's no quick shots, there's no master shots, and even some of the frame rates are limited right now. So that's kind of a bummer. What can you do? The controller, standard controller we've seen on the last couple aircraft. You have sitting, normal, and sport mode, your power button, return to home, joysticks that store in the bottom, pops up, put your phone in there, good to go. Works great, no problems there. But the aircraft was so close. If it had the ActorTrack 5.0, it would just be amazing, but it doesn't, so we'll get to that. How good is the footage? So, talked about how everything worked, how smooth everything was, but did it actually deliver on the footage? And I'm gonna have to go with yes. So here's some footage that I took. I'm just driving around, stopping at different spots where it looked kind of cool. And here's a couple river shots that I filmed in normal 4K, 30 frames per second, using D-Log, and then I graded them with the DaVinci Resolve. They have a DJI folder that has a D-Log to Rec 709 LUT. So dropped it on there, boom, things looked great. Let's talk about the slow-mo, the 120 frames per second. Now today, what this does is it may shoot at 120 frames per second, but you're getting a file that's at 29.97 frames per second that is a slow version of what you shot. So I'm not getting a file that has 120 FPS footage in it. I'm getting a 30 frames per second footage that is slow motion version of the scene. Okay, it works. I'd rather have just regular footage to work with, but it does work. And the slow motion on here looks fantastic because it was shot at 4K. 4K at 120 frames per second. And the bit rate on here is 200 megabits. The Mavic 2 Pro was 100. The Autel Evo 2 Pro was 120. This is 200 megabits. So that's going to give you much more data being saved to the card. It's making your file sizes larger. Don't get me wrong, file sizes are big, but it works really, really well, and the footage is just absolutely gorgeous. So, low light performance. So, flying around in the evening, some of these shots look absolutely fantastic. The colors are great. There's other shots here where you would swear it was shot in the middle of the day. The colors are great, the lighting is great, and this is after the sun has gone down. So the sun is not in the sky anymore, and I'm getting these beautiful, beautiful shots. Let's talk about photos. Same thing. The night photos on this thing, again, not night, but this was after sunset. This was in that kind of 30-minute window of between sunset and civil twilight. So I was flying in that 30-minute time frame, and the photos look gorgeous. In fact, I was able to pull off multiple 8-second long exposures that look fantastic. Every single one of them, without fail, turned out. I've never been able to do that before. I've been able to pull off one 8-second long exposure in the last 8 years of flying drones. One that actually worked. Yesterday, one right after another. Every single photo turned out great. So the stability, all that, really absolutely kills it on here. So the question is, do you need to upgrade? Well, we've already kind of discussed that, right? If it suits your needs and it's better than what you had, or you perceive it as being better, then it's a valid upgrade. Do you need to go to the Cine version that has a terabyte of storage and ProRes 422 HQ? Maybe. Is that what your clients are asking for? Well, then if so, the thing is going to pay for itself. For me, with my YouTube channel, the answer is no. I do not need ProRes 422 to create content for YouTube. I don't need it. Even if it gave me a little bit extra dynamic range or a little bit extra something, it's not enough to make up the difference for me. Now, as a filmmaker, that's different. If I'm using this in a professional environment where I'm shooting for TV commercials or a movie or something where I need the absolute best, well then yes, I'll get the Cine version. But for today, I'm sticking with the non-Cine version and getting used to it, using it to its full advantage, and doing the best I can with it. So hopefully that answered the question on that. Your pricing, your base model with your controller, one battery and a charger, $2,199. The Fly More kit is going to get you 2 additional batteries, a charging hub, a carrying case, and a set of ND filters. It's going to run you $21.99, or it's going to run you $29.99. So $800 bump from the standard version. The Cine version is going to get you all the same things with an additional set of ND filters that are much higher, and a carrying case, and the smart controller instead of the regular controller. That's going to run you $4,999. Almost 5 bones right there. Very expensive to go to ProRes and that internal storage, which is why I'm not doing it today. So hopefully this helped give you my impression of the Mavic 3. I think it is a great, fantastic bird, and I'm very, very happy I made the decision to get rid of the other 2 and move straight to this one and have one drone that does everything I need it to do, with the exception of the DJI FPV drone, which is in its own kind of realm. It does its own thing. But I'm replacing 2 drones, the Evo 2 Pro and the Mavic 2 Pro, with the Mavic 3. So thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Kerry with Filmmaker Central, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.